Bismillah walhamdulillah wasalat wasalamala Rasulullah letter F. DF. A peace and blessings be upon him, my beloved brothers and sisters. When we talk about something as simple as salt, many people might smile or wonder, how could something so ordinary carry such deep meaning? But that's precisely where the beauty of Allah's creation lies. The most powerful lessons in life are often hidden in the simplest things. Salt is one of those quiet, humble elements that Allah placed in our world, necessary for our bodies, essential in our food, yet also profoundly symbolic for our souls. In the Quran and throughout Islamic tradition, purity, balance and protection are central themes. And salt, in its essence, represents all three. You see, salt doesn't just add flavor. It preserves, it purifies, it protects. It keeps food from decay, much like faith keeps the human heart from corruption. Without it, everything becomes tasteless, lifeless. Spiritually, the same happens when we lose the essence of remembrance, Dhikr, gratitude and obedience. Our hearts grow dull, our homes lose their warmth. That's why our scholars have often drawn wisdom from the natural world, reminding us that everything around us carries a message from Allah if only we reflect. In Islam, purity isn't just about washing your hands or wearing clean clothes. It's about the state of your heart and the atmosphere of your home. Salt, when used with the remembrance of Allah, becomes a symbol of that purification, not superstition, but a mindful acknowledgement of Allah's mercy and His power to protect. Our Prophet letter FDF, they taught us that the unseen world exists. There are forces that can influence our emotional and spiritual well-being. Envy, hasad, sihr, things that the human eye cannot perceive, but the soul can feel. And so, Allah gave us means both spiritual and physical to guard ourselves. Think about it for a moment. When the Prophet letter FDF advised us to begin with Bismillah in every act, it wasn't because the words themselves are magical, but because they bring mindfulness. They connect every small action to a higher consciousness of Allah. Likewise, when believers in various traditions used salt around the home, the intent was never to place faith in the salt, but to remind themselves that Allah is the one who purifies, who preserves, who protects. The salt merely symbolizes that intention, a small, visible reminder of a much deeper truth. Psychologically, humans respond to symbols. They help us anchor our intentions. Just as we face the Qibla when we pray, even though Allah is not confined to a direction, the act of facing the Kaaba gives us focus, unity, and spiritual grounding. Similarly, using salt in certain parts of the home can serve as a physical act of remembrance, a way of saying, Ya Allah, I dedicate this space to your peace and protection. The act becomes meaningful because it is accompanied by sincerity and consciousness. Philosophically, salt is fascinating because it embodies balance. It's neither sweet nor bitter. Too much of it can harm, too little can weaken. Islam is a faith of balance, wasatiyya. We are told to live between extremes, to remain centered. In that sense, salt reminds us that purification must also be balanced. It's not about fear or ritual obsession, but about mindful protection, moderation, and trust in Allah's wisdom. And here's something we often overlook. When you sprinkle salt in your home, whispering Bismillah, you're doing something far greater than a symbolic gesture. You're asserting that this house belongs to Allah. You're declaring that no envy, no negativity, no dark intention has a place here. You are, in essence, fortifying your home with remembrance, humility, and gratitude. And these three qualities, remembrance, humility, and gratitude, are the most powerful defenses a believer can possess. So the next time you hold a pinch of salt in your hand, don't see it as just seasoning. See it as a reminder that Allah placed wisdom even in the smallest grains of the earth? Just as salt preserves food from corruption, the remembrance of Allah preserves our souls from decay. And perhaps that's the greatest protection of all. Because when your heart and your home are seasoned with faith, no bitterness can remain, only the lasting flavor of Allah's peace. When we speak about purity, most people immediately think of physical cleanliness, washing the body, cleaning the house, wearing neat clothes. And yes, these are important. Islam teaches us that cleanliness is half of faith. But what we often overlook is that purity begins long before soap and water. It begins within the heart, within the mind, and within the energy that flows through our homes. There is a type of spiritual hygiene that, when neglected, leaves us vulnerable to confusion, heaviness, and distance from Allah. You see, a home is not just walls and furniture. It's a living space that absorbs what happens inside it. Every argument, every act of kindness, every prayer, every sin, all of it leaves an imprint. Just as physical dirt gathers over time, spiritual clutter also builds up. You might notice it without even realizing it: sudden tension in the air, restlessness for no reason, a loss of peace during prayer, or even a strange sense of heaviness in certain corners of house. These are not coincidences. They are reminders that something within our space needs cleansing. Now, Islam gives us a beautiful concept called Barakah, divine blessing and increase. When Allah places Barakah in something, even a little becomes abundant, peaceful, and fulfilling. A small meal feeds many. A modest home feels warm and safe. A little time stretches to accommodate all your duties. But when Barakah is removed, the opposite happens. Plenty feels insufficient. Blessings feel empty, and the home becomes just a house without soul or comfort. And what removes Barakah faster than anything else? Neglecting remembrance of Allah, allowing arrogance, envy, or heedlessness to enter the home unchecked. That's why spiritual cleanliness is so crucial. It's not superstition, it's emotional and psychological truth. Just as clutter in a room can make you feel anxious and overwhelmed, spiritual clutter creates unease in the heart. A home where Allah's name is rarely mentioned becomes spiritually heavy. But a home where Dhikr is frequent, where Quran is recited, and where gratitude flows, that home becomes illuminated. The Prophet told us that Shaitan flees from a house in which Surah Al-Baqarah is recited. Notice, it doesn't say he leaves for a moment, he flees. Because divine remembrance and disobedience cannot exist in the same space for long. Salt, in this sense, becomes a small symbol of reclaiming Barakah. When we sprinkle it in remembrance, we are consciously declaring that our homes are places of light, not darkness. But of course, it is not the salt itself that brings purity. It's the intention, the remembrance, and the conscious act of reconnecting with Allah's guidance. Allah does not need our rituals. We are the ones who need the reminders. The act of cleansing the home spiritually reminds us to cleanse our hearts from envy, pride, and resentment, the true sources of spiritual pollution. And this isn't only about protection from unseen harm. It's about restoring the atmosphere of serenity that every believer deserves. Imagine walking into a space where every corner reminds you of Allah, not through objects, but through calmness, through the tone of voices, through patience in handling difficulties. That is a home filled with Barakah. When a home loses this spiritual fragrance, even the finest furniture or decor cannot replace it. But when Barakah is present, even the simplest meal shared with sincerity becomes a feast. Psychologically, living in a spiritually pure environment nourishes mental well-being. It's not only about reading Quran, but about living its values: honesty, forgiveness, humility. These qualities clean the emotional air in your home more effectively than any incense or spray ever could. When you forgive each other for Allah's sake, the heaviness lifts. When you begin your morning with Bismillah, you invite divine protection into the day. When you end your night with Ayatul Kursi, you shield your sleep. This is spiritual hygiene in action, consistent, mindful, and rooted in trust. So, let's not underestimate the power of cleanliness beyond what we can see. Physical tidiness brings comfort to the eyes, but spiritual tidiness brings peace to the heart. When you make an effort to cleanse your home through remembrance, kindness, and sincerity, Allah promises to fill it with light. Because when a home shines with Barakah, it doesn't just look clean, it feels clean. And in that light, even the darkest corners of life begin to glow again. When Allah warns us in the Quran, it is never to frighten us, it is to awaken us. His warnings are not threats, they are acts of mercy. They are like signs on a road that say, danger ahead, not to scare you from traveling, but to guide you safely toward your destination. And one of those warnings that many people overlook is about the unseen, the subtle forces, both good and harmful, that exist around us. Islam acknowledges this reality with wisdom and balance. Allah tells us in the Quran that there are creations we cannot see: jinn, shayateen, and the influence of hasad, envy. These are not myths, they are part of the unseen gaib, which the believer accepts with humility. The danger lies not in their existence, but in our neglect. When we live heedlessly, forgetting to recite our morning and evening adhkar, neglecting prayer, filling our homes with constant argument, gossip, or sin, we create spiritual openings. Just as leaving your door unlocked invites thieves, leaving your soul and your home unguarded invites harm, confusion, and unrest. This is why Allah repeatedly commands us to seek refuge in Him. Ad, hu belohi min ash ish, awilata 1e6 macron n arrojim, because protection begins with awareness. Now, it's important to remember that harm only happens by Allah's permission. Nothing, absolutely nothing, can touch a believer unless Allah allows it. But Allah has also taught us the means of protection, both physical and spiritual. Just as you wouldn't walk into the rain without an umbrella, you shouldn't live in a world full of spiritual tests without shielding yourself through remembrance and obedience. The Prophet ﷺ taught us at Al-Kursi, Surah Al-Falaq, and Surah An-Nas. These are not mere verses to be recited by tradition. They are shields forged by divine words. They realign your consciousness with Allah's power, reminding you that your strength does not lie in fear, but in faith. And this is where acts like sprinkling salt, done with intention and remembrance, can play a symbolic role. They serve as a conscious reminder, a physical gesture that says, this space belongs to Allah. No darkness, no envy, no negativity has authority here. It's not about superstition or rituals detached from faith. It's about awakening awareness. The salt in this context becomes a psychological anchor, something tangible that reinforces a spiritual truth, that we are never powerless as long as we remain connected to our Creator. When you protect your home through remembrance and sincerity, you are also protecting your mind and heart. Psychological unease often mirrors spiritual neglect. People say, I feel restless, heavy, anxious at home, yet forget that their environment is a reflection of their spiritual habits. When you raise your voice in anger, when music replaces adhkar, when gossip replaces gratitude, that home loses its light. The Quran tells us that shayateen dwell where Allah's name is forgotten. But where Allah is remembered, tranquility, sakinah, descends. This isn't poetic language, it's spiritual reality. You can feel it.
You can walk into a place and sense peace without anyone saying a word.
That peace is not decoration, it's divine presence. Philosophically, Allah's warning teaches us a profound truth about human responsibility. Protection is not passive, it's participatory. Allah gives us the tools, but He asks us to use them. Just as He commands us to seek medical treatment when ill, He commands us to seek spiritual remedies when the soul is burdened. The difference is that one heals the body and the other fortifies the heart. When we take these reminders lightly, when we dismiss spiritual protection as unnecessary or old-fashioned, we distance ourselves from divine wisdom that has safeguarded believers for centuries. So, don't wait until life feels heavy or your peace feels stolen to remember Allah's warnings. Build your protection through daily connection, through Dhikr, through Quran, through humility. Keep your heart illuminated and your home will follow. Because when you take Allah's warnings as invitations to awareness, not as words of fear, you transform them into pathways of peace, and peace, once invited, never leaves a heart that remembers its source. Every home has places that hold meaning beyond their physical function.
In the same way, the human body has points where energy gathers: the heart, the mind, the hands. Our homes too have spaces where emotion, memory, and energy collect. When we talk about putting salt in 7 sacred spots, we're not speaking of superstition, but symbolism. These locations are not random. They represent the rhythm of daily life, the places where blessings enter, where rest happens, where sustenance is prepared, where cleanliness begins, and where spiritual connection is established. Islam is a faith deeply rooted in mindfulness, in bringing awareness of Allah into every corner of life, and that includes the very spaces we inhabit. The first of these spots is the entrance of your home. Think of how many times a day that door opens, welcoming family, guests, and sometimes energies we don't even perceive. The Prophet letter FDF taught us to begin with Bismillah when entering and leaving the home, so that Shaitan does not enter alongside us. The doorway is symbolic of boundaries, where what is yours meets what is outside your control. When you purify this space, physically and spiritually, you are declaring that your home is a sanctuary under Allah's protection. A small act, like sprinkling salt with Bismillah or reciting Ayatul, Kursi near the entrance, reinforces that this is a place where only goodness is welcome. The second and third spaces are the corners of rooms and the kitchen. Corners often collect dust, not just physical dust, but also stagnation. It's where energy settles. A tidy corner reflects a tidy mind, and a spiritually cleansed one reflects awareness. The kitchen, on the other hand, is the heart of sustenance, the place where Allah's provision, rizq, is transformed into nourishment. When this space is spiritually maintained, when food is prepared with gratitude, when waste is avoided, when Bismillah precedes every meal, Barakah fills the home. But when we cook or eat without remembrance, we strip the meal of its spiritual flavor. Then there are the places connected to water, the bathroom, the sink, the washing areas. These are spaces of purification, but also vulnerability. Water cleanses us, but it can also be a medium for impurity if not treated with care. The Prophet letter FDF taught etiquette for entering such spaces, including seeking Allah's protection. Placing salt or reciting Bismillah at these points is not a ritual for the salt itself. It's a statement of consciousness, a reminder that cleanliness in Islam begins with intention. The bedroom is another sacred space. It's where you rest, dream, and renew your energy. It's where your mind transitions from awareness to vulnerability. Many people report feeling unease or heaviness in their sleep, and they overlook that rest too is an act of worship. Before sleeping, reciting Ayatul Kursi and the last verses of Surah Al-Baqarah creates a fortress of peace around the believer. Salt in that space symbolizes purity and protection, a reminder that your rest is entrusted to Allah. The sixth space, windows or balconies, connects your private world to the public one. It's where light enters, but also where external energies flow in. Keeping these areas open, clean, and spiritually maintained allows the home to breathe. Reciting Subhan Allah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illa Allah wallah hu akbar while tending to these spaces fills them with remembrance, creating harmony between the inside and the outside. And finally, the prayer area, the heart of the home. This is where the unseen light of Sakino descends. When the Prophet _FDFA prayed in a space, that place became filled with tranquility. It is said that angels gather where Allah is remembered, and their presence brings calm and protection. When you purify your prayer area, keeping it clean, fragrant, and free from distractions, you make it a true center of serenity. Even a pinch of salt placed there with Bismillah becomes symbolic of grounding that space in purity and humility. Each of these 7 spots mirrors a spiritual principle: boundaries, sustenance, cleansing, rest, openness, and worship. Maintaining them reminds us that faith is not separate from daily living. It's woven into every moment and every corner of our environment. When you care for your space with intention, Allah fills it with peace. Because a home that remembers Allah in every corner becomes more than a shelter, it becomes a sanctuary where the unseen angels dwell and the heart finally finds rest. Whenever we speak of acts that protect and purify, like sprinkling salt, reciting verses, or maintaining spiritual boundaries, one truth must always be remembered. In Islam, the act itself carries no power without intention and sincerity. It's not about the ritual, it's about the heart behind it. The moment an action loses its connection to Tawakkul, trust in Allah, it becomes hollow. True protection is born from belief, not from habit. Many people misunderstand this balance. They think, if I do this specific act, I'll be safe, but forget that nothing protects except Allah. The Quran makes it clear, and whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. Surah At-Talaq 65:3. The salt, the verses, the prayers all are means, not ends. They remind us of our dependence, not our control. That's why intention matters so deeply. The Prophet _FDFA said, actions are judged by intentions. You can perform the same act as another person, but only the one who does it for Allah's sake receives divine acceptance and blessing. When you sprinkle salt in your home, it's not an act of superstition, it's an act of remembrance. Begin with Bismillah. Whisper it with presence, with mindfulness. Let it anchor you in the moment. As the grains fall, let your heart release negativity, fear, or anxiety, or all the clutter that crowds the soul. Recite Ayatul Kursi or verses from Surah Al-Baqarah, not as a chant, but as a reaffirmation of belief. You're saying, "O Allah, you are the protector of this home. You are the light that removes all darkness." Philosophically, this is profound. Faith in Islam is always balanced between action and trust, effort and surrender. You must take the means, but never depend on the means. That's Tawakkul. You tie your camel, as the Prophet _FDFA said, but your trust is not in the rope, it's in Allah. So when you perform these small protective acts, they become powerful not because of what you do, but because of who you remember while doing them. That's the secret that transforms the ordinary into worship. There's also a psychological depth here. These acts, when done sincerely, engage your senses, touch, sight, sound, and they anchor spiritual awareness in the physical world. They help you slow down, to pause, to reconnect. In a world filled with distractions, such mindful rituals can calm the mind and reawaken the soul. They remind you that protection begins internally. If your heart is at peace, your home will reflect it. If your soul is restless, even the most beautiful home can feel heavy. That's why consistency is key. Spiritual protection is not a one-time event, it's a way of living. It's in your words, your habits, your prayers.
The Prophet didn't just recite certain verses occasionally. He built them into his daily routine.
Morning and evening adhkar, gratitude before sleep, seeking forgiveness after mistakes. These small acts form the unseen armor of a believer. When done regularly, they cultivate resilience, peace, and light that no harm can easily penetrate. And here's something beautiful. Allah loves consistency even in small deeds. The Prophet said, "The most beloved deeds to Allah are those done regularly, even if they are few." So don't underestimate the impact of a sincere Bismillah, a quiet verse, or a mindful moment of remembrance. You're building layers of protection that go far beyond what you can see. In truth, these acts are not about keeping harm away, they are about keeping faith close. When you perform them with humility and awareness, you strengthen your connection to Allah, and that connection itself becomes the greatest shield. Because when the heart remembers its Creator, fear loses its grip and peace takes its place. So when you sprinkle that salt, don't just protect your home, protect your heart. Because a heart anchored in Tawakkul can never be shaken, no matter what storms may come. A truly protected home is not one surrounded by walls or locked doors. It is one surrounded by remembrance.
You can build the strongest structure, install the best alarms, and still feel unsafe if your spiritual foundation is weak.
But when Allah's name is alive in your home, when His remembrance fills your spaces and your hearts, you create a sanctuary that no force of envy or darkness can easily penetrate.
That's why strengthening the home through faith is not an occasional act. It's a continuous way of living. It's about transforming your house into a place where Allah is remembered, loved, and obeyed. You see, Barakah doesn't appear by chance. It descends where Allah is remembered, where gratitude is practiced, where hearts are connected by sincerity. When the Quran is recited, when the adhan echoes softly in the morning, when parents and children pray together, something happens that can't be measured. A light fills the air, a calm settles over the family, and the unseen angels gather. This is not poetry, this is reality. The Prophet told us that when people gather to remember Allah, peace descends upon them, mercy covers them, angels surround them, and Allah mentions them among those with Him. Imagine your home being mentioned in the heavens simply because you chose to make it a place of Dhikr. Yet we often underestimate the influence of what we allow into our homes. A house can be filled with luxury, yet starved of light. If television noise replaces Quran recitation, if arguments echo louder than salah, if gossip flows more than gratitude, that home begins to lose its peace. From the WENEEALTH or SCOMFORT stillness, it comes from presence, being conscious of Allah in every interaction, every conversation, every corner of the home. The truth is, every home has an atmosphere. You can walk into a place and sense tension, or you can walk in and feel ease. That feeling isn't random, it's the spiritual climate of that space. And who shapes that climate? We do. Every word, every choice, every act of kindness or disobedience leaves an imprint. When the Quran speaks of sakina, that divine tranquility,
It's not a gift that drops randomly.
It's drawn toward environments that invite it. So if we want our homes to be places where hearts heal, not hurt, we must fill them with remembrance, humility, and forgiveness.
Psychologically, this has immense power. A spiritually grounded home produces emotionally grounded people. Children who grow up hearing Bismillah before meals and Alhamdulillah after blessings learn that gratitude is not a chore, it's a way of being. Spouses who pray together nurture empathy and respect. A family that maintains cleanliness, physical and spiritual, creates an atmosphere of dignity. These are not small details. They are habits that shape identity. They teach that protection doesn't come from fear, but from faith in action. This is why consistency is so crucial. Read Ayatul, Kursi before sleep, recite the morning and evening adhkar, keep the Quran audible in your home. Make dua as a family, not just when problems arise, but as a daily conversation with your Creator. Even the act of greeting one another with Assalamu alaikum carries power. It literally means peace be upon you. You're not just exchanging words, you're invoking divine peace upon the people you love. When homes are filled with such interactions, they become havens, not perfect, but peaceful. And remember, strengthening your home spiritually is not only about words, it's about intention and action. A clean heart attracts light, while grudges and envy block it. So forgive often, thank Allah frequently. Keep your space tidy and your heart even tidier. When you live with that consciousness, you're not just protecting your home, you're preparing it for divine presence. Because in the end, the greatest shield is not salt or ritual or even routine. It's the constant remembrance of the one who protects. When Allah's name lives in your home, fear leaves, peace enters, and even the walls begin to whisper His mercy. So fill your home with remembrance, and let Allah fill it with light.